Hey, Divine Leader, welcome. So delighted that you are here. So let's dive right in. Today, we are going to be talking about the number one key to your next big leap, which is to get out of your zone of genius and into your ascended mastery. So I wanted to kick us off today with two quotes. One is from my business partner, Thoth, Tahuti, who happens to be a being of light, the keeper of the Akashic records, the God of infinite knowledge, ascended master, scribe, architect, healer. So here's the quote from Thoth. You are an ascended master. Be one. You are an ascended master. Be one. You are an ascended master. Be one. So I'm just letting that one settle in. And we're going to unpack more about this topic here in a moment. Now, I have a second quote, which is from yours truly. I don't give a frick about your zone of genius. I want to help you uncover your ascended masteries and empower you to create from there. So, as we're spiraling our way into your next big leap, into your legacy work, your seven-figure spiritual leadership, global movement, we're going to unpack the difference between zone of genius and your zone of ascended mastery. Now, if you've read the book, The Big Leap, which I love that book, it's really an amazing book and talks all about how we have our zones of incompetence, kind of what we suck at, our zone of competence, what we can do, our zone of excellence, like what we may even be good at or really good at, and our zone of genius, which is what we're great at. And so kind of adding on another zone, which is the zone of the ascended mastery. And, for a long time, and I've taught and do teach, and the council teaches, like how to really get into your unique zone of genius. And yet I see so many entrepreneurs, coaches, leaders, like really struggling to, of course, to get out of those other zones, yet to stay in the zone of genius. And I know for myself as well, like what I've been asking that deeper question, like we all know, be in your unique zone of genius. And yet, why aren't we being it? And I want to weave in here too what Thoth and the Council of Light have talked about for a lot of years, which is there are evolutionary stages in consciousness. So when we talk about evolutionary stages of consciousness, and really with our clients, we work a lot in the evolutionary stage of consciousness, which is the divine genius stage of consciousness, where there comes a point as a seasoned entrepreneur where there's more to be garnered from scribing your own book or creating your own program, your own business, than reading 10,000 books from other individuals. So there's kind of this evolutionary stage of consciousness that Thoth and the Council of Light call your divine genius. And that divine genius really is like moving towards legacy or opus level. It's where you've honed your craft, you know your magic, you create amazing results for your clients. And there's this genius level, this divine genius. And part of the process of scribing a book or creating your programs or the experience of offering sessions, like I have, I don't know, 25 years of sessions and programs, and like there's a lot of experience, and this is true too for the budding entrepreneur and the seasoned entrepreneur, because we also have life experience, we have past or alternate life experience is that are a part of our gifts and talents and our divine genius. And so this is an evolutionary stage where we're cultivating our divine genius. And then what I've started seeing, and this is kind of also really what my Ascended Mastery and my mission is all about, is this next evolutionary stage in consciousness, which is directly tied to seven-figure spiritual leadership, which is where we are living and doing business as a divine being, as a embodied soul, as what we speak about in the Divine Light Activation Program, being a light being incarnate, where you stop creating or sharing your contribution from only your human self, which is kind of the evolutionary stages, like your human self. And stay with me here. We're really going, we're going to uncharted territory, and kind of what I talk a lot and what the team talks a lot behind the scenes or in our paid program. So there's really a lot of value here for you. And that usually it's like your human self that has areas, zones of things that you're good at, things that you're not good at, things that you're better at. And even your adept human self, if you will, has these areas of genius. And, you know, if I look at my trajectory, like I was a great massage therapist. I was a great yoga and Kundalini yoga instructor. Like I was a great energy healer. Like that might even be a zone of excellence or bordering on a zone of genius that I carry. And yet at the same time, my legacy work wasn't born from those. It was really born from the Ascended Masteries that I carry, which for me happened to be about how to activate somebody's Ascended Masteries, how to activate them living as this light being incarnate, and then how to birth opus level or legacy level body of work. Because I know that I wasn't alone, and I know I'm not alone, that you may be feeling this way too, is that you sense that even though you're doing great work in the world and maybe you're making amazing money, that you're not really tapped into your infinite potential or your highest level skill, your ascended mastery. Now, the thing about the ascended mastery and even the unique genius or the divine genius is that sometimes we can't see it. Like we need someone else to help us see it because it's so forest for the trees. So that brings me to kind of the next point I want to make, which is that your ascended mastery and your genius, and really leaping from the evolutionary stage of divine genius into ascended mastery, which is again that opus level or that legacy level work. It's not a skill set. It's not a modality. It's not like what you do, and or what you've learned. It's really most likely something that's so a part of you that you can't see it, like the forest for the trees, which is why if we go back to my quote is like, I don't give a frick about your divine genius. I really want to help you discover your ascended mastery and then empower you to create from there. Now, as you're a leader, a spiritual leader, you're an innovator, you're a pioneer, you're forging new territory, you're leading a new thought leadership. You don't have like an owner's manual, or you can't look around and see what other individuals are doing, because most likely, also what Thoth and the Council of Light often talk about, you're one of one. There's only one of you. You're a snowflake. You're a unique signature energy. There's only one of you. And so you can't really look around and say, oh, well, that's my ascended mastery, or that's what I do. And it really does take this deeper look. And that's also why I love partnering with the Ascended Masters in light, is that they can see what it is that we are naturally adept at, and then be able to reflect it into words and into concepts and ways of being that we can understand. Now, what you've probably noticed is that when you are in your zone of excellence, even, you can be frustrated. Or when you've tried to kind of look around and say, well, is that my ascended mastery? Is that kind of the crazy, out of the box, magical, cool adeptness, magic that I carry when you look around at somebody else, or you try what they're doing and you feel super frustrated, or like, even if you want to, you don't seem to have that gift, that's a sign that it's not your ascended mastery. I remember there was a client that we were working with for a while, who's a part of our Divine Light Activation family community. And it was like a group program, and she was really frustrated because she didn't see, and there were others in the group that could see. They were seeing energy, or they were seeing their guides, or they were seeing the next step, and like she didn't see. And yet her magic was even a higher level of adeptness. So sometimes when we really have like gift envy, is what I like to call it, when we have gift envy and we don't have it, it's because our ascended mastery is actually more adept. Now, not in a hierarchical that one gift is better than another, any of that, but just in the sense of, well, most likely our ascended mastery, we didn't learn it at career day. Like, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a teacher. We didn't learn it at career day, and nobody else is doing it. And which is natural, when we kind of try on other individuals' gifts and talents, or the way that they do things as a way to get closer, because that is one of the ways where we say, oh, well, it's kind of like this, but it's not. It's kind of like this, but it's not. It's kind of like this, but it's not. And that gives us more information, where we can go like that childhood game where we're getting colder, 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 or warmer, warmer, warmer. And so that recognition that if there's something that you've really been having gift envy around, and it's not coming to you, or even if you've studied it, even if you've put in the hours, most likely it's because actually the ascended mastery that you carry is a more evolved octave of that. It's just like with prototypes, for example. If there's a prototype of an airplane, that one earlier prototype of an airplane, like, it still may have worked, yet it's not the same level of the prototype of the airplane of what's now available. and to really be cultivating your next leap, and in having a global impact, your next leap in money, your next leap in your leadership, your next leap in, and also your own spiritual evolution, and your opus level life as well. There requires, from my perspective, this shift from doing business as usual from your human self to really doing and being business from your ascended master self, from your divine self incarnate. Now, it's not that you kick out your human self and all of a sudden, you're just this all light and love all the time. It's really a physically incarnated experience. And there's been programs that Thoth and the Council of Light that have I've partnered with to bring in that really help activate this, like the Divine Light Activation activates you as a light being incarnate and brings into dormancy more of operating as the third dimensional version of you. So if you want to find out about that, then you can just PM us on Facebook. So these kind of activation programs really help the Magdalene codes as well to change your field, your energy field, so that you are really, and also to activate your business as a light being incarnated, so that you're accessing, you're embodying more of your divine self. Because just like if we look at the stages of zone of incompetence, zone of competence, zone of excellence, zone of genius, zone of ascended mastery, that there is this kind of linear progression. And some of these are learned, like you may have started out not being the best, whatever it is, cobbler or acupuncturist or whatever skill set it is. And some of those you can move. You can go from it being an area of incompetence where you can get better at it, and you can learn, and you can have some level of competency. And yet your ascended mastery, and I'm just like getting goosebumps about this. I feel like I've been waiting to talk about this for about 20 years. Yet your ascended mastery, it's not going to be that progression. It just is. And you have it in a way that it's in wholeness. Now, when we look at the ascended masters, and in my own path of getting to know the divine, God, Goddess, Great Spirit, all that there is, source consciousness, for me, my path was very much connecting with the ascended masters, with the guides, and particularly with the Egyptian pantheon. And one of the things that I really loved about that was when there was a god or goddess in the Egyptian pantheon that I was getting to know, that archetypal energy that I also have within me, then it was like a way of getting to know the divine in bite-sized pieces, like this way of really embodying, for example, if we look at the goddess Isis of love and magic and midwifery and crystals. And so the goddess Isis doesn't just have one ascended mastery. She has multiple ascended masteries. Or like my main access point to source consciousness is infinite wisdom with Thoth, that he's the ascended master of scribing, of architecture, of the Akashic records, of healing, alignment, of really also magic. Like there's different ascended masteries that ascended masters carry. And it's not that you learn your ascended masteries like where you go to school and you learn one thing, and then you go to school and you learn another thing. And they also come together simultaneously where they're all related. And that's a big paradigm shift as well, because we've been taught that, well, that to have an area, a zone of genius, it's equated to a certain 10,000 hours, for example. When you have 10,000 hours of a skill, then you're in your zone of genius, or your and at the same time, what I'm talking about here is really you as an ascended master, going back to Thoth's quote, you're an ascended master, be one, and then in your areas of ascended mastery. Now, it's feeling aligned to share a little bit about my process with this, because again, to recognize my areas of ascended mastery, there was reading in the Akashic records, and there was also, when I look at legacy work, for example, because I know a lot of you that are here as 6 and 7 figure coaches and healers and practitioners and leaders of movement, it's not like it's your first rodeo, or it's the beginning of your journey, like you're seasoned, you already know some stuff. And when I look at the first body of work that I brought in 2005 directly with Source, it was a manifestation mastery, and it was all about soul body fusion. That was kind of like the way that it was coming through at that time, and it was about manifesting. And then if I go 16 years later at the time of this recording, there's divine light activation, which is basically an evolution of soul body fusion. And yet it's not the soul, it's really your light being self, because your light being self is doesn't carry the slower vibrational stuff that you're completing as that your soul does. Like your soul carries a whole bunch of stuff that your light being incarnate self doesn't carry. So, and your light being incarnate is closer to your divine self. Like just to embody your divine self, it's easier said than done, because you have a lot of experience in your third dimensional body, mind, emotions, and in your human side of things, and your survival instinct and those kind of mechanisms. And so oftentimes legacy work or opus level work, especially if you've been at it for a while, and I also see 6 and 7 figure spiritual leaders like coming on the scene hot. Like they're unlike me, where they're having 25 years of experience. Like they're a budding entrepreneur, and they're just coming in hot and really leading their industry, because they're coming in that evolutionary stage of consciousness of the ascended mastery. And so whatever you've been up to, whether it's been in any of those zones, or whether you've studied with this person, or you've learned that modality, or you had a career in one thing and now you have like, none of it is wasted. All of it has been on purpose, and all of it's related. And yet to really get to that ascended mastery stage in consciousness, where you are creating your legacy work, it does require not only a leap in awareness, but also like a vibrational leap, a leap in consciousness, an evolutionary stage. Okay, so I think I'll bring in the team here, as I like to have them come in for a part of these, and I've been talking for a while. yeah, I was starting to share a little bit about my experience of understanding my Ascended Masteries, and they really have come from my partnership with the Ascended Masters and Source and Thoth, and that's also one of the Ascended Masteries that we help our clients with, is to see those, especially because they haven't existed on the Earth star before. Like, you're here to lead a new thought movement. And so, of course, it'll have some things that you knew already or that others are doing as a part of it. And yet, what makes it hot, what makes it like the it factor, the X factor, the magnetic factor, is that there's an innovative aspect to it. Okay. Hello, dear ones. This is Thoth and the Magdalens, moving more into the forefront of this divine transmission. And we would speak a little bit more about evolutionary stages in consciousness and the way that the evolutionary stages in consciousness relate to your highest level contribution, your opus level work, your spiritual leadership movement. So, as Danielle was sharing, we've spoken about and have been assisting individuals for quite a while in the evolutionary stage of divine genius. And the divine genius evolutionary stage is where you come to a place in your evolution in consciousness, and also in your work, in your business, in your expertise, where you have most likely studied. You have most likely been seeking and taking in other sources of information. And then you recognize that there's actually more to be garnered by creating your book, rather than reading 10,000 books. Like, who it is that you become in your divine genius evolutionary stage of creating your book is very, very, very accelerated. It's very accelerated. And you can create a divine genius book, which is incredible. It's already extraordinary. It's magnificent. And you can create an Ascended Mastery level evolutionary stage in consciousness book or modality or program. That's the way that we play with how it is that you're being an Ascended Master on the Earth star through creation, through your business, partnering with Source to have your opus level, your legacy level business, partnering with Source to create in the physical plane, so that your Ascended Masteries don't only work in the higher planes, they're being applied to the physical plane. They're being applied to the physical plane, where you are seeing the money in the bank. You are transforming the lives of thousands. You are holding your book in your hand. And when you are creating and in the creative energy, then you're also tapped into your creator self, your divine self, the aspect of you that is creating. And just like there can be the challenge to let go of the zone of excellence, if we go back to the book, The Big Leap, and that concept, we know we're speaking about the divine genius as an evolutionary stage in consciousness, and then we're talking about the zone of genius. Just as it can be challenging for somebody to leave their zone of excellence, what it is that they're great at, like Danielle is an amazing healer, yet it's not her divine genius and her ascended mastery. It's related. It's related. It's been a part of the evolutionary stage. And yet for her to stay in offering healing, it happens naturally. Those that are around us come into greater alignment. So there is healing. Yet that's not really what it is that we're up to, because all is well. Now what? Like, you've been on your path. You've done a lot of the inner work. And so when you are moving out of your divine genius, the work that you've been offering, that's great, that's going well, that's making money, and you're also willing to step into a greater level of ascended mastery, there can be it can feel a little bit like a big leap. It can feel like a big leap. It can feel like, well, is that crazy? Is that crazy? Like, will anybody show up for that? And it's actually crazy cool, and individuals will absolutely show up for it. So we are inviting you to explore within your own system what is beckoning from within you. Do you have a sense that you're on that evolutionary stage of you've been in your divine genius, and now you're ready to go into your ascended mastery and to really cultivate your unique legacy work in the world? And if so, there are many paths to that. And yet, if so, and you're interested in partnering with us around that, then we'd invite you to reach out, to send Danielle a personal message on Facebook, and we can explore if it's an aligned match together. So as we are stepping aside here, we would complete by honoring all evolutionary stages, by honoring how there may be a percentage of your energy that you're spending in areas of incompetency. And maybe that's your takeaway from this transmission, that you're no longer willing to be in your areas of incompetency or your areas of competency. And so we just, as we're completing, invite you to really take a few moments to integrate. There's been a lot that's been shared here. Like Danielle said, she almost has a sense that she's been waiting 20 years to be talking about this, because now is the time. She talked about it 20 years ago. You wouldn't have been in the place to hear it, and we wouldn't have been in the place to share it in the same way that we are now, because seven-figure spiritual leaders of global movements are here to be creating from, not the human side of things. And we are not saying that you get rid of your incarnation, because your incarnated self has a role and is important, and we are proponents of the physical plane and creating in that way, and all of you is welcome. And yet it's not going to be your body, your mind, and your emotions that are going to create your legacy body of work. It's going to be coming from being tapped into your higher consciousness and yourself as a light being, as an ascended master, as a divine being. And we are stepping aside here. We just want to mention you are an ascended master. Be one. All is light and love, and we are all. Well, Danielle here, moving more to the forefront. Thank you for tuning in. And there was a ton here. So if you're feeling called to explore whether or not it's an aligned match to partner with me in the Council of Light, we have some activation style programs, the Divine Light Activation, the Magdalene Codes, and there's also the Ascended Master Academy, which is really where we're assisting you to uncover your ascended mastery and to be empowering you to create from there so that your unique body of work based business is really thriving in that 7-figure spiritual leadership from the highest evolutionary stage in consciousness. Okay. Sending much love and appreciation.